Welcome in to the GT Counter Podcast. My name is Tyler. Joining me, friend of the show, first time guest on the pod. Excited to have him here to talk some OU football. My guy, Dalton Berger of the PigSkin Podcast. Dalton, what's up, dude?
Hey, not much, man. Not much. I'm actually kind of mad that you went with GT Counter because I saw that and I was like, fuck, dude, that's a banger of a name. I should have got that. So I stuck with Pigskin. But no, it's been fun. It's been fun. Finally, football season's back. Me and my buddy Sebastian, my co-hosts, are getting into our twice a week posting. So yeah, definitely go check us out over there. We're just a couple idiots.
Absolutely. Always a joy to listen in. It's whenever we were getting to OU, getting into conference play, I knew there was one guy. We've been talking about this for months now. Back when the Thunder were playing the Mavs, we didn't make it work then, but we're getting it in now. So we were back. This is like 3 or 4 years ago now, working the back rooms of Dick's Sporting Goods, just chopping it up about college ball. So now to do it on a pod, like it's the perfect timing. It's go time, and we're excited to do it.
Yeah, man. First weekend of the SEC. I'm actually going to be there on Saturday. Just absolutely stoked. Also stoked to be on this absolute banger of a show that you guys have going on over here. Yeah, man. I'm super excited. Outside of school, this is my favorite time. With school set aside, this is my favorite time of season. There's nothing better than football season, especially on Saturday. So,
absolutely. Well, let's not waste any time here. Let's kind of jump into this. So, Josh Heupel, the king of Oklahoma, makes his return to Norman this weekend with Tennessee. The Vols are heading in there 6:30 Saturday night. This is an ABC game. You got the number one crew. It's Fowler, Herbstreit, and Holly Rowe and the gang are going to be calling it. So it's going to be an electric atmosphere. It's not big noon kickoff, even though Gus Johnson is the GOAT. Something hits different about a night game, conference play. First SEC game for the Sooners. So let's just kind of start there with what the atmosphere is going to be like. Do we think Heupel is going to get a warm return? I don't think anything beyond it being like the first SEC game. Like, I think the OU fans will genuinely have a love and respect for Heupel, especially because enough time has passed and, they fired him for Lincoln Riley, which is kind of funny how that worked out. So, he's obviously had great success there at Tennessee, but what do you expect the atmosphere to be like on Saturday for Heupel's return? Maybe a tribute video, or at least no booing of him whenever he gets introduced, I would assume.
I expect a tribute video. Look, I'm only 23, so I was like a month and a half old when Heupel and the boys beat Florida State, but it was in my blood then. It's still in my blood now. I love Josh Heupel. He did some great things as an offensive coordinator, everything at OU. I want to get this out. If you boo Josh Heupel on Saturday, you're a complete idiot. No one has done more for the program since he left. No one's been able to win another national title since we got close. Jason White almost got there. Lost in the national championship game. Sam Bradford got close. Of course, Baker obviously on the brinks of beating Georgia back in the infamous Rose Bowl. But I expect a tribute video. I think it'll be awesome. I don't know if they're going to do it pregame, if they're going to do it halftime, if it's going to be between the third and fourth. Well, that's Toby Keith time if we're being real now. But I would expect something. But outside of booing the volunteers that come on the field, I don't think any of those are going to be targeted at Heupel. I think it's going to be a warm welcome.
As it should be. That dude won your last national championship. He should be treated as royalty because, let's be real. There's not a lot of dudes walking around who are national champions, national championship quarterbacks. That's a rare thing. So to get him back in the building, regardless of how it went down when he was fired, I think it's going to be a good reception for him. And obviously it's going to be, even his part aside, the first SEC game in your building. Painted end zones are back finally. So I expect it to be a great atmosphere under the lights. Of course, you've got game day there as well. It's just going to be a celebration the entire day. I know our guy Eddie Radosevich is going to be locking it down on the tailgating down there. So I expect a lot of OU fans to be good and lubed up, if you will, for this game.
Oh, they certainly will be. And any of the old people that show up to the game, you might as well get all your grievance out now. I think it's going to be loud. It's going to be raucous. And honestly, I think OU gets a little bit of a bad rap for one of the top tier, like blue blood programs in terms of how crazy it can get. But we've been pretty bored with the Big 12 stuff for quite a while, and especially since the move to the SEC has been announced. So hadn't been the prettiest last few seasons, but we're here. And just like Castiglione said, just like BV said, all offseason leading into this, we're not coming just to compete. All right, we're coming to win titles, and the fan base is here right along with them.
Absolutely. So as far as the game itself is concerned, I don't know where you stand on this, but I think the matchup that's going to determine this game is Brent Venables versus Nico versus Heupel, kind of that chessboard that's going to be played with defensive play calling against Heupel's offense. Nico's first chance to walk into a hostile environment. The only games he's played away from Knoxville have been neutral site. I hesitate to call the game in Charlotte a road game. There was a lot of orange there. And then the bowl game, obviously, that was in Florida. I mean, nothing really truly counts from that one. So first time for him. I'm interested to see if it rattles him at all. He hasn't shown to be rattled yet. I know he threw 2 picks in that game in Charlotte, but that game was kind of out of control, basically from the midpoint in the second quarter onward. This OU crowd, like you said, it's going to be loud. And if OU can get Tennessee to play from behind here, I think that there's a script for them to pull this thing off. But I am very interested to see what Venables has been holding back. We were talking a little bit before we got live here. Venables definitely held some things back for Tulane last week. Saw some new wrinkles to what his base defense typically is. I'd imagine he has plenty more where that came from for the first SEC conference game. What do you think we can expect from Venables' defense here, especially with guys like Stutzman, Bowman patrolling the back end? You've got 2 studs back there who can get the job done. And then the defensive line has been a revelation too. 11 sacks in 3 games so far.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it dead on. BV is going to come out and he's going to start throwing stuff that maybe the entirety of football history has never seen. He's so smart when it comes to drawing up blitzes, disguising pressures, disguising coverages, and bringing things. Hell, there might be people popping out of the bottom of Owen Field to go hit Nico. Like, you don't know what he's going to bring out. But yeah, and the good thing is look, Tennessee, Josh Heupel have run that super quick, high tempo offense as long as Josh Heupel's been doing it, right? OU had the same thing with Jeff Lebby last couple of seasons, and even before then when Josh Heupel was back at OU. So it's something they're familiar with. Now, Tennessee, I think, is like towards the bottom of the country in time of possession. So, which can benefit OU, but the good thing is look, you see these, what's the word I'm looking for? Underexperienced defenses that can struggle with that stuff because getting calls and stuff like that. And obviously you got the mic and the helmet and everything now, but with guys like Billy Bowman and Woody Washington has gone not talked about a whole lot. Danny Stutzman, they're going to be able to get the calls in quickly. The main thing is going to be making sure the defense is aligned and there's no busted coverages, because that's where Nico and them are going to kill you at. But if OU defensively can get into their play, get aligned, and have their head up when the ball is snapped, I think defensively and schematically it's going to work out very well for the Sooners. Now, they're not going to hold Tennessee to under 20 points. That's not happening. OU's going to have to score 35 to 38 points to win this game. But maybe you get some luck from the defense. Maybe you get a pick six. Maybe you get a fumble recovery in plush territory. Maybe Peyton Bowen can finally field a punt without making me clench my ass. So I think all signs, I'm a lot more hopeful than I think a lot of Sooner fans are. All signs point for a very competitive game and a hopeful win. But at the end of the day, we're just going to have to see what happens when they get on the field.
So I'll go ahead and reveal one of my picks that I'll have on Own the Board this week. I've got actual money on OU plus 7.5. And I think it's because the game script that I envision getting OU to cover town and potentially upset territory here. It's when you look up midway through the second quarter, OU's up 10-3, and Tennessee has had the ball for about 6 minutes of the 24 minutes of game time. And you're like, well, it just feels like we haven't seen much Nico at all. And if OU can kind of get that game script where they're chewing clock, getting first downs, keeping that defense rested against the tempo that Tennessee's going to try to run, I think that's your path to victory. And I do think this is a winnable game, especially because if Nico does get a couple of turnovers, you look up midway through the third quarter, into the third quarter, you're up 2-0 in the turnover margin. You've had the ball for 28 minutes, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, it's 17-7 right now, and we're, getting ready to get into the fourth quarter here. Like that, I think, is a path. Now, do I think it's the most likely path? No. But I do think OU has a path to winning the game. And if the goal is to try to keep this close, like maybe you don't get quite as many turnovers, maybe you don't, score as much as you would like, but this is going to be a night game in Norman, and I just don't foresee OU getting the brakes beaten off of them. It doesn't compute to me that way. So I think it's going to be a close game. I trust Brent Venables' defense first and foremost, and we can talk about the offense here in a second, but the defense here is where I'm hanging my hat, and that's why I kind of have the handicap I do. What has been the kind of the thing you've liked most about the defensive line? You got the transfers in, especially the big nose tackle from TCU that was obviously very sought after. LSU wanted him, Texas wanted him, but he goes to Norman. This defensive line has 11 sacks in the 3 games, as I mentioned earlier. So, do you think this defensive line can match up with Tennessee, try to slow that run game down a little bit to make Nico very one-dimensional?
Yeah, certainly. I just want to go ahead and thank myself. My $15 a month to One Oklahoma definitely is what skewed Demonic Williams in our favor. Unfortunately, lost out on Lance Hurd, who will be playing at tackle at Tennessee. But yeah, no, look, especially in the SEC more so than anywhere else, it all starts in the trenches. It all starts up front. John Terry had a little injury scare last week. He got rolled up on, but he came back in and played well. R. Mason Thomas, obviously, the last 7 plays of the game, he went sack, PBU, strip sack, forced fumble, picked up his own fumble. So the defensive line is going to be where it's at. Obviously, Brent's going to try to, like I said earlier, scheme up a lot of things and bring pressures from out of nowhere and try to confuse Nico as much as possible. But it all is going to start with stopping the running game. And OU's had one of the better defenses in the country against the run. They haven't seen an attack quite like this. But I think, Demonic Williams, DJ Terry, even the true freshman Jaden Jackson, who has played outstanding football, especially only being an 18-year-old true freshman, it's all going to start up front, and it's just going to lead the way for Stutzman to come in and have another 15 to 20 tackle game. And, I hope if they can control the line of scrimmage, OU's going to be looking pretty good going towards the end of this game.
Is there a magic number you're looking for from this defense, whether it's tackles for loss, sacks, turnovers forced? Is there an indicator that typically shows whether or not that defense is doing its job?
I think so. I don't know if you watch Josh Pate, but you get the padlock stat that he brings out every now and then. I think the padlock stat I'd be looking for, if we can get 5+ sacks in this game, I think OU is going to be sitting pretty towards the end. So
it's a big number, but with that defensive front, I think you can probably get there if you have if you perform at your A level. So, the offense of OU is one that's been criticized, I think is a fair way to put it. Coming into this year, there were a lot of O-line concerns, given it was 5 new starters that Beatonball was trying to break in. Like the receiver corps, but they've been beaten up, early injury concerns out there. Deion Burks has been as advertised, though. 22 receptions, averaging almost 8 yards a catch. So not super explosive in terms of the averages, but definitely been a nice safety blanket there to have, especially given some of the injuries that have been out wide. And then running game, you've got Sawchuk, of course, who's been, kind of he is what he is. He's been pretty good, but actually not really in the ground game looking at the stats. So Jackson Arnold is the leading rusher of this team. What gives?
So that's actually something Seth Luttrell talked about after the last game is the quarterback run game is something that they wanted to hold on to for as long as possible, but the offense just couldn't move the ball. Gavin Sawchuk, you're looking at those numbers. Look, the offensive line has gotten no push up front. OU, for whatever reason, does not like to run different variations of outside zone. They like counter. They really broke out a lot of counter against Tulane, GT counter specifically.
Nice plug there.
Yeah, exactly. They run a lot of inside zone as well. I wish they'd go outside, but for whatever reason, they won't. The injury concerns up front have been an issue, obviously, but Gavin Sawchuk is more of like your patient, wait for the hole to open up and then hit it as hard as possible type guy. Javonte Barnes has actually been, I think, our best running back, especially in pass protection. He's really good at picking up the blitz. Taylor Tatum, number one running back in the country last year, has been fantastic with the ball in his hand, but he can't read a blitzing linebacker to save his life. And so each one of these guys has their own problems. Javonte Barnes' biggest problem is he can't make a guy miss in space, but he gets downhill and he gets going, and there's gonna be a violent car crash whenever they collide. So I still think we need to stick with Javonte Barnes, but also half the reason Jackson Arnold is leading the team in rushing is he had a 25-ish yard touchdown run last week against Tulane to kind of bury it. And then early in the second quarter, they ran a counter read. I want to say it was a counter read play, and he kept it. No one on Tulane's defense saw it, and he got 47 yards there. So it hasn't been the most explosive run game. I think coming into the Tulane game, he was averaging a little bit over 2 yards per carry. Now they're at 4. So it helps, but it's going to be something we definitely need this weekend. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I know when OU really has it going, they love going to that counter play where they pull the guard and tackle around. That's been, God, I have nightmares of watching some Red River games of years old where it's just, God, you get the two big heavies running around the corner there. You get the kick and the wrap. Oh, it's just, when that play is rolling, it's pretty much unstoppable, especially when you add some of the RPO stuff off of it. The thing that sticks out to me, like you were talking about Javonte Barnes, his long carry on the year is only 14 yards. So he's been averaging 4 yards a pop, which isn't, it isn't too terribly bad at 4 yards a pop. You get 3 of those, it's a first down, but the explosiveness is just kind of lacking. Meanwhile, you get down to Taylor Tatum, who's long as 35. He's averaging 7 yards a pop. Like, just some of that explosiveness, granted on half the carries that Barnes is getting. So a little bit more of your change of pace type, but maybe some extra juice could be worth it when an offensive line is struggling to get going, which paint me surprised. Never thought I would say the day where OU offensive line struggling with Bill Bedenbaugh as your O-line guy. That is it just not come together yet, or do they still need more time to play? Like, kind of, what's the deal with the situation up front?
D, all the above. So injuries, we're on our third string center. Really fourth string center, because if you think about it, Troy Everett was the guy last year after in the bowl game, and then he tore his ACL. So he's out pretty much all season. You go get Branson Hickman out of SMU. He comes in 10 plays into the Temple game, sprains his ankle, which, speaking of Taylor Tatum, 7 yards per carry, the long of 35, his 2 biggest runs came in garbage time in the fourth quarter against Temple. So that's kind of eating up most of the chunk there. But and then Branson Hickman goes down against Temple. They bring in Garen Hatchett, the transfer guard from, I believe, Joe Moore Award-winning Washington from last year. But he was dealing with a torn bicep, so he pretty much had one arm. Now his season's done after having surgery on his bicep. So now it's Josh Bates, who was a highly ranked center. He's a redshirt freshman. He's got an elbow injury on his non-snapping elbow. So it's everything is just kind of, and that's just at center. At right tackle, Jake Taylor has been beat up. He finally gets in the game against Houston, and I want to say I'm literally watching it through midway through the second quarter. I see him get hit, and he pulls up, and he's walking back to the line of scrimmage like this down the field. And I was like, damn, again, really? He gets 2 more plays in, gets pulled, and then freshman Logan Howland has to play for him. They swing Tarquin back over to the other tackle spot. Big Jake Sexton is in at guard. And so I think there was a stat one of the guys from Sooner Scoop brought out after the Tulane game, or before the Tulane game. Jackson Arnold has played with 7 different variations of his offensive line through 3 games. It's just all the above with the whole offensive line. I still have full faith in Bedenbaugh. I think he's one of the best, if not the best, offensive line coach in the country. It's just, like BB said the other day, there's a reasons of 1's a 1, a 2's a 2, and a 3's a 3. And you can't play with too many 2's and 3's if you expect to be dominant. So
that is definitely the truth there. So let's talk a little Deion Burks, a little bit of receiver here. This Tennessee secondary, I think, is the weakness of that defense. Their defensive line has been hyped up very well. They have some good players. Haven't necessarily shown just a ton of it yet. They're not, they're not leading the country in sacks or anything, but they have the players to do it. But the secondary, it can be had. It's generally viewed as kind of the weakness of that defense. The receiving core for OU has obviously been just beaten to crap so far this year. You've got injuries all over the place, but with Andrew Anthony and Nick Anderson being listed questionable, I think probable is what you said. So if you can get those guys back, what do you think the chances are that Jackson Arnold can get the ball out to your playmaker in space and try to take advantage of the secondary?
So you are right. The secondary is going to be the weakest part of Tennessee's defense. They're just not very experienced. They just frankly haven't been tested yet. But yeah, so Nick Anderson, Andrew Anthony, both listed as probable. Andrew Anthony tore his ACL in the Texas game last year. So he's been out there. He played a tad in the Temple game, but watching him like in warmups and stuff, you can just tell he doesn't have trust in that knee. Nick Anderson, I would expect both of them to be back and play a healthy amount. Nick Anderson, his first game in against Tennessee, I don't think he's going to go off for like 8 catches, $150, and like 3 touchdowns. Now, I would lose my absolute mind if he did, and he would be my savior. But I would expect it's going to be another heavy workload for Deion Burks. I would like to get him in space a little bit more. Most of the stuff they hit him on is going to be your little hitch routes. It's going to be flats. They hit him on a couple screens. And he's great in open field. I mean, he's a punt returner, right? That's what he did at Purdue. He's great at making guys miss in an alley, but I think we need to let him show what his true talent is, and that's down the field. The only problem is you got James Pierce and the guys for Tennessee against a not very good offensive line for OU right now. So hopefully we can get some time to let those things go, because I think like the deep over routes, stuff like that are going to be really good, especially if you get him and Nick on the same side of the field. Nick maybe runs a go route and Deion's on an 8, whatever, any combination of things just to kind of threaten the defense a little bit. But because we haven't been able to show it, we haven't been able to do it at all this year, I think we actually might be able to gash Tennessee's defense down the field. Granted, the Jacksons gave him some time to do so.
So here's the thing about Tennessee's defense. They have forced 4 turnovers this year. Only one of them has been pick. They've had 3 fumbles recovered. That screams fumble luck to me. So if Jackson Arnold can take care of the football and not put it in harm's way, I do think there's a world out there where OU can kind of grind out some runs, get some things going in play action, RPO game, maybe hit a couple of deep shots. But I think the way for OU here offensively is just to grind this game out, first downs, get into the red zone and convert when you get there. So obviously key to the game, you got to win the turnover margin. If you can force Nico into a couple of picks, you take care of it yourself. I think the thing I'm going to be looking for here is if OU can get +2 in turnovers. Now, granted, getting 2 out of that Tennessee offense might be wishful thinking, but if NC State did it, then I have faith in this OU defense to get some things done here. So I think +2 in the turnover margin, and then I need to see at least a couple of explosive runs. Give me a couple of 10-yard gains to get a quick, easy first down, maybe get a drive moving, something like that. Ideally, it's out of the running back position, because that'll just take some pressure off of Jackson Arnold to really feel like he has to do everything with the offense. But, if it's the quarterback run game too, where you're getting +1 with the running back going downhill and blocking as well, I mean, in this game, you'll take it when you can get them, because, I mean, quite frankly, getting started 1-0 in SEC play against this Tennessee team, that would be a momentum boost. That would be very big for OU headed into the rest of the SEC conference play.
Yeah, with arguably one of, if not Georgia's probably got Florida now, but like there's some tough schedules in the SEC. OU did get no favors handed their way. I do think you're right. The run game is going to be the most important on both sides of the field, whether it's offense or defense. Stopping the run and getting the run going is going to be great. I actually think we might get to see some Michael Hawkins, the 4-star OU legacy freshman quarterback. I think he's got wheels. He can throw the hell of the ball too. So might hope to get some of him going. But yeah, I think if the quarterback run game is what's there, you take it all day. You're going to take everything the defense can give you. Just hopefully Jackson doesn't get hurt, because unlike some OU fans, I still have a lot of faith in who Jackson Arnold is. There's a reason this kid was a 5-star. There's a reason they sent Dylan Gabriel packing to Oregon. There's a reason that he's the starting quarterback at Oklahoma right now. He's special. And when he's got time, you've seen it. Like in the Arizona game, yeah, there was 3 interceptions, but there were some plays out there that not your average college quarterback's going to be making. So, yeah, I really hope that the run game get going, but starting 1-0, first season in the SEC, beating what some people think is the national championship contending Tennessee team would be pretty sick. And it would be pretty awesome just to say that I was there for that would be insane. Just to tell my kids someday. It would be pretty insane. So
that would be epic for sure. Real quick, I do want to dive into special teams here because I do think this could turn into a kicking game if it gets into the red zone late, maybe get into some tight situations. Where does OU stand at the kicker position?
So can we talk about Luke Elzinga at punter? Because that's a lot more fun for me. Tyler Keltner is...
Take it where you want, yeah.
Tyler Keltner has been okay, but I'm not going to be... I won't be proved right or wrong until a game like this weekend. Because if it does turn into a kicking battle, I don't have a ton of faith in Tyler Keltner doing it. I sure as hell don't have any faith in Zach Schmidt doing it. But this is the game where Tyler Keltner could prove it to me. If he goes out there and drills even a 45-yarder right before we go into halftime and say OU's getting the ball out of the half, just a huge momentum swing like that, right? I think that's where this game could be won and lost, like you say. But honestly, outside of the defense and Stutzman and Bowman, the best player on this team might be Luke Elzinga at punter. He is an absolute weapon. And if this game turns into a dogfight, if we could pin Tennessee back inside the 5, inside the 10 a few times, like that's going to severely swing the shape of this game. And it's been a long time since I've come on here, or just in general, talking OU football and been this excited about a punter. Maybe since the Tress Way days, but also OU scored more touchdowns than I think they've punted throughout history just in the past decade. So, I think special teams is going to be great. OU has to find a way to not terrify me when fielding punts. It's been a problem since last year with Gavin Freeman, who's now at Oklahoma State. But now you get someone, a 5-star like Peyton Bowen, that's out there doing it. And the whole Houston game, he couldn't catch anything. And then you send Billy Bowen out there, and while his fiance might be the best center fielder in the history of college softball, he can't track a fly ball to save his life. So it's just one of those things. It's going to be hit or miss, but a lot of questions are going to be answered about 3 days from now at this point.
Yep, getting there. So it is funny you bring up the punter. So Tennessee's punter, granted he's only punted twice, but he hit one of them 43 yards and the other one he shanked. He's got a 43-yard punt and a 20-yard punt. So
nice.
If it does turn into one of those kind of more Big Ten-ish kind of field position battles, advantage OU with the punting position for sure. And hey, you never know. Special teams always in these games can be a great equalizer. If you are lacking in one thing, you pull off a fake punt. You have good field position all game because you can return. You can pin them back deep on the special teams with the punts. So you just never know, man. So I do think that could be a swing point if OU is to get this thing done. If you're constantly getting Tennessee backed up inside the 20 to start their drives, making a freshman go 80 plus every time is it's tough work for anybody, but especially a guy playing in his first road game.
Yeah, and look, I'd rather win like Iowa than lose like USC. So I'll take a 12-3 game 11 times out of 10 over a 49-48 loss. So do that as a man.
Absolutely. All right, so I got to give you this prediction time. I don't need a final score. Just tell me how OU gets this job done. I'll give the Tennessee path.
Okay. So OU's going to get it done. Just like we just talked about, they're going to be pinning Tennessee back. When they can't score, Luke Elzinga is going to be that weapon. They're going to make Nico have to sustain these long drives and go down the field. And I think OU gets the running game going. I think OU rushes for 200 plus on this defense. Now, if that's 2 100-yard runs from Jackson Arnold, whatever it is, I'll take it. But I think OU hits the 200 mark on the running game. Like I said, I think OU has 5 sacks to win this game. I think the defense forces a turnover or two. So it's going to be a complete 100, or well, I guess scholarship wise, an 85-man effort to go win this football game. And it's entirely doable. And honestly, obviously, I'm hopeful that it happens, but I genuinely think it will.
So as we know, I've got OU plus 7.5. I genuinely do think that this OU defense is going to give Nico some problems. But the way Tennessee gets the job done here is that they are level or better in the turnover battle. I think if Nico turns it over, I imagine he'll probably turn it over once. If Tennessee returns the favor, gets one back off of Arnold, obviously they've had 3 fumbles recovered in the first 3 games. If there is some fumble luck to go along here, I do think that the key for Tennessee to get this done is going to be the turnover battle. I don't think this game is going to be very high scoring. I know you said you thought that OU might need to sneak up into the 30s. I think this game is played in a phone booth. I think first to 30 wins. I think potentially 28 gets the job done here. So I think OU is going to be interested in draining some clock, keeping Nico on the sideline. And I think if Tennessee goes 3 and out a couple of times, that, there is a very real possibility where we look up and at halftime, OU's had the ball 19 minutes and Tennessee's only had it 11. And you look up and it's like, wow, how's it only 10-10? It's like, well, there's your answer. So I do think this is going to be a field position type battle, but if Tennessee gets it done, it's because level and turnovers. And honestly, if that's the case, it's probably looking at, I think it could be 28-21, something along those lines. But I do think this game is a phone booth game. So you're going to be in for a banger, man. It's going to be what an atmosphere under the lights in Norman. God, I can't wait for this. It's going to be an absolute banger of a game.
I'm stoked, man. I'm just so excited to get out there. My blood's been pumping since Monday. Really since the Tulane game ended. This is where my entire focus has been. So yeah, man, like I said, I would fully welcome a fight in the phone booth for this football game. I just want to see it happen at this point. I can't wait.
Absolutely. So before we get you out of here, let's get a couple of OU kind of SEC-ish thoughts in general. With Texas and OU headed in this first year, the scheduled draw, I will say that OU did kind of get the harder end of the two, I think. Even this week, you get Tennessee coming into your building. You have to go to Auburn next week. The bye week before Red River is obviously a bonus, but, you get Alabama on that schedule. You get LSU on the schedule, which granted, LSU doesn't look quite the same as they did maybe preseason. That defense doesn't look like it's improved hardly at all. Side note, I still have no idea what in the hell they're doing with Harold Perkins. Let the man rush the passer. It makes no sense why they're playing him off the ball. Brian Kelly's a terrorist.
Yeah. And not only, you mentioned Alabama, you mentioned LSU, not only that, South Carolina with a healthy Lenora Sellers looks a lot better than I think most people anticipated them being. But you also go to Ole Miss, you go to Missouri. Depending on how this offense plays, that main game could look really terrifying. So it could go either way. I came into the season, I expected OU to split the 6 between Tennessee, Texas, Ole Miss, Missouri, LSU, Auburn. I expected them to split that, go 3-3 in those 6 games. If OU goes 3-3, and I still wholeheartedly believe that this is possible, OU splits those 6, goes 3-3. They finish the season 9-3. OU's probably not hosting a playoff game, but they're probably in the playoffs at that point, is what I would assume. But my expectation is kind of fallen from 9-3 to maybe closer to 7-5. But this game, I think, is going to tell us so much more than anyone ever could have anticipated.
It's kind of weird to have a real pivot point game in your season in game 4 of the year, first game of conference play. And it's like, man, you win this one and all of a sudden your outlook is 10 times better than where it could be if you lose. So that's going to be a fascinating one. Some other SEC thoughts. I'm going to be honest with you. I watched that Mizzou BC game. Not all that impressed with Mizzou thus far. I think that the offense, Brady Cook's okay, and obviously Luther Burden is an absolute stud, but I think that Schrader did a lot for that run game. With him being gone, I just don't have the same level of fear that I used to in Missouri. Maybe that's a testament to Boston College. Obviously, what Bill O'Brien's done there is pretty impressive in his first year. But I don't know. I'm just not a full-on Mizzou believer like I was. I think that game is more of a toss-up than I thought it would have been preseason. After seeing the two teams play, I do think that there's a path there for OU. I know it's in Missouri, but I mean, the Mizzou home field is nothing that OU hasn't seen before in the Big 12. Like, I'd be more scared of going to Jack Trice for Iowa State than I would be going to Mizzou. So that's kind of where I'm at with the Mizzou. But do you have any other thoughts just on some of the teams in general, maybe spots you're looking forward to?
So first of all, I will say it's Mizzou after them trying to come after us all offseason on Twitter, thinking they're the same level of program as Oklahoma. Be real. But yeah, I think it honestly is kind of flipped though, if you think about it. A lot of OU fans, a lot of the media kind of thought the OU Tennessee game was maybe that 50-50 game, and then OU Missouri was going to lean more heavily for Missouri. But yeah, the dynamic is completely flipped. Yeah, no, I'm really excited. Obviously, I'm not going to be there. I actually have a Saturday wedding. I love you, Simon. I really do, man. But really, we couldn't have done the bye week. It's 7 days later. I will be in Stillwater, of all places, at a wedding when OU plays Auburn next Saturday. But I'm really stoked to see OU in their first true road SEC game. I think it's going to be fantastic. I might be back in Norman for the OU Alabama game. Super stoked about that. I might have to cash out my 401k to go, but we'll see. OU also might be 6-6 or 6-5 at that time or whatever, so I might actually be able to afford it. We'll see. But the most intriguing game this whole time for me, ever since the schedule was announced, was last game of the season in Death Valley. Would 100% assume it's going to be a night game, especially if LSU can kind of get some things rolling. And I think that is my dream matchup, just because like they beat us with Jason White in the 03 National Championship game. Never been a huge LSU guy. My co-host Sebastian, other than being an OU fan, is a big LSU guy. He also wants to see Brian Kelly thrown into the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. So I think OU LSU is going to be an absolute banger and an awesome way to finish the first season in the SEC.
Yeah, that's kind of an underrated spot there. Last game of the year, who knows what either team might be playing for there. Golly, it's so nice to be, and don't get me wrong, I think the Big 12 is electric. That conference this year especially is just absolutely bonkers. The UCF comeback against TCU last weekend was insane. Amazing. I watched that one and I was like, wait a minute. So, but it's just a different level in the SEC. So getting to play teams like LSU and Death Valley, and then, you know, you get to return the favor next year and they'll get to come to your place at some point. And then, you know, it's awesome to kind of see some of these matchups. And, you know, it's a lot of conference realignment has taken away some rivalries, but with Texas and OU heading back to the SEC, you get some of those older, like Southwest Conference rivalries. You get some of those old Big 12 ones with, you know, teams like Arkansas, Texas A&M, of course, which you don't get to see this year, but I'm sure it won't be too terribly long before you see them again. It's refreshing, man. It's the SEC probably has it best in terms of like the regional rivalry still. Some of like the part with the Pac-12 being gone, the kind of the allure of what college football is. That regional rivalry down here, it's awesome, man. It's going to be a great conference, and I don't think anybody gets through unscathed. Like, there's a very, very real world where it's a championship game. It's like 2-10-2 teams. Like, that is not going to be surprising at all with how the strength of schedule works out.
Yeah, no, and what's great about that is, and I haven't been the biggest expansionist type person when it comes to the playoff, but I do think it's obviously going to benefit conferences like the Big Ten and the SEC. Like, you're probably going to get one of every other conference, one group of five, probably Notre Dame, and then the rest is going to be Big Ten SEC teams. But yeah, man, it's just insane. The regionality of it is what's best. Like, I, as a true Oklahoman, I do feel that the state of Oklahoma is in the South. Miss me with any of that Midwest stuff that is not Oklahoma. Our barbecue stands up to anybody. We're in SEC country. It's an SEC level program, and it fits perfectly for them to be in. I mean, I can honestly see a real world where maybe there's an injury and an 8-4 Georgia skates into the playoff as the 11 seed, obviously group of 5 probably be your 5 or 12, but as an 11 seed, they get fully healthy and then they go on a run in your 11 seeds or national title winner. Like it's just going to make the end of the season so much more fun and so much more enjoyable than it's ever been. It feels more like NFL ball than anything else. So
I agree. And, you know, I guess the big pushback on it was, well, some of the games are less meaningful, but yes, maybe in the past, maybe like Michigan, Ohio State last year would have been less meaningful since it wouldn't have been like a playoff, you know, basically a playoff semifinal to get one of those teams in. But think about how many more games are going to have meaning that last weekend. We'll go from, you know, potentially 4 games being meaningful to upwards of 15, 20 maybe, depending on how the group of 5 shakes out and how some of these conference races shake up. So, yeah, it's going to be an absolutely incredible year. We're just now at the start of conference play, which makes it even better. It's going to be awesome, man. So before we get out of here, go ahead and take the time to pump your stuff here. Let the people know where they can find your pod at.
Yeah, of course. So the PigSkin Podcast on YouTube. It's me and the Italian stallion himself, Sebastiano. Goes by Sebastian. But yeah, man, the PigSkin Podcast again on YouTube. We usually record twice a week. We'll do a recap episode from the weekend, and then we'll do a preview episode looking ahead. We got a competition going on. We call it our dick picks, but nothing like that. But pretty much we pick 5 games a week, whether it's the spread, whether it's the over-under, whether it's money line, and we're just having a little challenge between ourselves. We haven't figured out who does what for it, but another level to it. He's a Bears fan, one of the stinky Bears fans. I'm a Packers fan. So we get tried and true. We're brothers when it comes to OU, but then as soon as the NFL ball starts, we hate each other. So, yeah, it's super fun podcast. Like I said, we record twice a week. It's all pre-recorded and posted. It's usually anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours worth of just nonstop football content and talking crap and just being goofy. So I think I shouted out 9/11 about a week and a half ago. Not the best look for me, but it was a hilarious clip. That's up as a short on our page. But yeah, PigSkin Podcast, check us out. And should have our next episode. We just posted yesterday. Should have our next episode up Friday morning before we get into the games. Or Saturday morning.
Love it. Do you have a pick for the – hey, all good. Do you have a pick for the road to hand out?
I haven't looked yet, but let me go grab one. It'll take me 2 seconds. I'm thinking – because Jordan Love did practice today, so we might get some Jordan Love action. Let's see. Tennessee's favored 1.5 in Tennessee. Over-under 35.5. I'm going to take the over, and I'm going to take Green Bay. Not only money line, pretty much. Green Bay is going to win that game, especially if Jordan Love plays. Green Bay's winning that game 100 times out of 100. So I will
that
also say
moved. I looked earlier today. That was 3. So the books are telling you that Love might be back.
Yeah, he should be. Also, I'd be willing to bet my entire life savings on another Will Levis meme. He's been my favorite player in the NFL this year. So
he's 2 for 2. So chances are you're in good shape.
Yeah.
Well, Dalton, appreciate you coming and hanging out. Best of luck to your Sooners this weekend. Worst case, just keep it close. But I think you've got a real shot here. So looking forward to watching. Thanks everybody for listening, watching along with us. Catch us on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you get your pods. So until next time, be the man in the arena, go make some money, and peace out.